Hey everyone, Justin here, bringing you another addition to the short video series on bolt action and how to play it. This will be the fourth and most likely final video in the series dealing with assaulting. I know I said I was probably going to do a fifth one, tying up some loose ends and special rules and all that, but I think I've covered everything I kind of wanted to in the other series and the other videos. Again, didn't get into the weeds with everything, but there's a reason for that gets really long and drawn out, and if you got special rules for your army, then hopefully you've learned that and you're playing them that way. But I think I've covered the basics of what you'll see all the way through, so I think I'm just going to save on doing that fifth video. I'm going to tie this one up. This will be, again, video 4 dealing with assaulting. Finish this up, and then we'll discuss where we go from here with what we plan to do after that. So, yeah, we're going to cover assaulting. This is a very short, basic, easy video. We're going to cover infantry on infantry, infantry to vehicles, vehicles to infantry. There's some special rules when you get into different things like that. And again, I'll cover some of the, I guess you could say, more prominent special rules that you're going to see pop up in most armies that you're going to come across in assaulting. But you'll see, again, how smooth the mechanics are of this. But we'll go through covering them then. One by one, and we'll get the table set up here, and we'll start with the basics. Okay, so let's get into talking about close combat and how assaults work. Before we actually go through and break it down step by step, let me just quickly go through the 7 steps in the assault phase, and then we'll break it down and actually look at each one in detail. So first, you would declare the target. You're going to measure your move distance. That's important. Again, remember, it's just like shooting, no pre-measuring. So you have to declare your target and declare you're going to charge or assault before you even measure. So that's an important piece there. The target's going to react. You're then going to move the assaulting models. You're then going to fight the first round of close quarters. That includes the attackers rolling, the defenders taking casualties, the defenders rolling, and the attackers taking casualties. And then there's a possibility that they'll attack at the same time, and again, we'll get into that a little bit in detail. And then the loser would surrender and be destroyed, or be destroyed, I should say. And then you're going to resolve the draws. If there would be a draw after the first round, we're going to fight a second round. And then finally, the winner is going to regroup. So let's take a look exactly what that means step by step here. As we look at the table, we have a group of Finnish soldiers sitting here, and a group of British commandos. Now, we'll say scenario, whatever happened in the final turn, this is a fresh turn, that somehow it caught both these guys in the open. But we go to draw a dice, and we're going to draw a Finnish die first. So the Finnish decide, instead of trying to open up on them, it's a little bit of a smaller group, they're just going to charge them, because if they would stand still and shoot, then they're going to be left in the open for something else to hammer them. So they're going to try to charge these guys and maybe then try to regroup a little bit behind cover. So when you pull the dice, you're going to give them a run order. So you're going to declare the target. We're going to say, yep, we're going to assault these British commandos. Then you're going to measure your move distance. Again, target must be declared beforehand. At this point, you're going to measure. This is a little bit different than shooting. In shooting, you measure each individual model to an enemy model to make sure they're all in range. In charging, all you're going to do is measure from the closest model of the attacker to the closest model of the defender. So in this case, looking at this roughly, it's these two guys here. We would measure, we come in at about 8 inches, which is good. So we know they're good to go. Again, you measure from closest to closest. You still must not go through impassable terrain, and you can't go through other units that you're not charging. If there'd be another unit here of British, you can't say, I'm going to charge these guys in the back and just loop around to go through them. So you can't cut through them. If the charge is greater than 12 inches, once you measure, these guys would be at 12.5 inches. The charge automatically fails. They can't charge. They can't do anything. They're just stuck there. If you're going through rough ground or obstacles, your charge range is reduced to 6 inches. So if they would have been behind this hedgerow and decide to charge, they would have to have been within 6 inches to actually make that charge. But since they're out in the open, it's a straight 12-inch charge. So once you verify the charge can be made, you verify the distance, which in this case we said it was 8 inches. which remember that's going to play a role. Remember that number, that's going to play a role later on once we actually get into the next step here, which is the target reacts. So in this situation, the British have not gotten it going yet. They have not activated yet for this turn. So the defenders can choose to make a out of sequence shooting action, which would be a reactionary fire. If they had already moved, they can't do anything. They just got to sit there and take the charge coming. But in this situation, they have not taken any action, so they're going to choose to fire at the oncoming assault. So we're going to pull their dice from the bag, and we're going to go to give them the fire action. Now, there's a couple notes with this and doing this. One is, if we were within 6 inches, for some reason they were actually up here when they got to make the charge. If you're within 6 inches, you cannot do a reactionary fire. Basically, there's not enough time for the defenders to bring their rifles to bear, so the charge goes on without being able to fire. In this case, they're back here. We said about 8 inches, right about in there. So they're good there. They'll be able to do it. If this unit was pinned, they will automatically pass a morale test. They don't even have to take one. It's an auto pass for them. Now, they don't lose any pin markers in doing that. So that is important. They auto pass. They're bringing their rifles up. They got guys charging in. They're going to go ahead and fire on them. So the pin marker would stay there. They don't lose it. So any negatives that they would have on the pins, if these guys had 1 or 2 pins on them, that would still apply to the shooting, but it's not going to, again, affect if they can shoot or not. This is resolved, and this is a key part, because we'll get into the next thing here. This is resolved, the shooting phase is resolved before any models are moved. So before your opponent says, yep, I'm charging, and they start to move, you say, hold on, I'm going to do reactionary fire. It's done just as they were sitting here. Why is that important? Well, all weapons from your defending shooting are considered to be in range. So we know, again, we're within the 8 inches. So we have some rifles here, we have an LMG, and we have an SMG. So in this situation, the shortest maximum range we have of a weapon here is the SMG at 12 inches. So at 8 inches, they're still good. But say I had a commander here that had a pistol. It's only a 6-inch range. They are still able to fire at this attacking unit because they're charging in. So they would still get their attack, even if they're over that 6 inches, because they're moving in. The only penalty to that is they are automatically considered long range because it's where the models sit. So it's auto long range no matter what. So SMG, same thing. Even if they're charging in, because we're at 8 inches, it's over the half distance, the 6 inches for long range. So the penalty will stand as it is right there. So let's go ahead. We're going to roll this out as a reactionary fire and see how this all works out. So let's get into rolling some dice here for these guys. One thing I want to note, there's a couple asterisks in my notebook here. Again, remember, if this is under 6 inches, it's a surprise charge. These guys will not get to react with firing. Also, the one thing we didn't cover is if this was a machine gun here, remember, any arced weapons, or weapons with a firing arc, I should say, that 45 degrees, can only do a target reactionary fire if the charge is within their arc. So if there's an MMG facing, say, this way for some reason, these guys were assaulting from in behind that firing arc, he could not do a reactionary fire. So let's figure out what we have here, what can actually shoot. So we have an LMG here, which is going to get our 4 shots. We'll say he's a loader. Then we have 1, 2, 3 rifles. 3 rifles. And then we have an SMG. Now, the SMG is over long range, so we'll use a different colored dice here. So what do we need to hit? These guys are within 8 inches. They're in the open. In this situation, there's no firing, or there's no pins on these guys or anything like that. These are all considered within close range. So we're going to need 3s on the black dice, and we need 4s on these for the SMG. So again, this is an out of sequence shooting phase for the defenders, so it acts just as it would. So we're going to roll. We're going to take away those, take away that. So not a bad shooting phase. We got 6 that hit. These guys are veterans, so we know we need 5s to actually kill. So we take away the 1s. So that's pretty brutal. So we have 1 2, 3 dead with 2 possible. Keep them on the table. So there we go. So there's 3 dead. And I'm going to get to pick one of them. So in this situation in charge, you take away the NCO. So he was able to pick off my NCO with that. And then 2 more of the attackers will get to the side. We'll take the 2 in the back. So not horrible, but there are 3 less guys they have to worry about in the assault phase. So reactionary fire is done. They were able to put some damage on them before they actually come in. So now that we've done the reactionary fire, we're going to go ahead and move the assaulting units. Now, some other game systems out there are very specific about when you move assaulting units. They can only move so far, and then you have to end within so far. Because we know the charge range is good, what you do is you move the guys up. They're 12 inches. And the way the rule book reads is you bring as many guys into contact as possible. Even if it pulls them farther than 12-inch run, you can do that. So if these guys were daisy chained out, you'd be able to swing them around. And then the opponent is going to go ahead and pile in automatically too. Again, some other rule systems are very specific on that. What I like about bolt action is it's very accurate in the fact that the finisher charging in, the commandos say, okay, let's go get him, up and at him, and they meet him in the middle, and then the assault takes place. So everybody's going to take place. Now, if these guys are in a tight corner where you can't get a model in base-to-base combat, you could then put a model in behind it. He's still considered to be in fighting, it's just because you can't get him in base contact. So in this game, everybody's considered to be in that assault and go ahead and get in there and get their swings in. So again, I can move them over 12 inches. Assaulting through any type of terrain, again, if you're assaulting over this hedge, it reduces our range to 12 inches. So remember that right off the bat when you're measuring. There's no sense in going this far because they don't even be able to move that 6 inches. There's one other thing we're going to cover a little bit, and we'll get into how that works a little bit more. If these guys were behind the fence, I'm just going to throw them here to show. If these guys were behind the fence and these guys were assaulting, assaulting that fence is not considered moving across obstacles because these guys are actually defending this position. Now that's going to give them a bonus here, which we'll discuss in a little bit, but I just want to make note of that it does not count as reducing it to 6 inches. They would still get their 12-inch move because they're assaulting that position. So that's kind of a key note in that as well. It's just they're going to get the defensive, what's called a defensive position bonus, which we'll explain in a little bit. But they weren't fortunate enough to be behind that fence, so they're going to be here in the open. So there we go. The Finnish have assaulted in. The commandos have moved up to meet that assault. Now we're actually going to get into rolling for our casualties and to see what comes of this big mess. Alright, so now we're going to go through the first round of combat. The attackers will get to hit first. So we count how many we have here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. So I'm just going to grab these dice real quick. Okay, so 6 guys. In the combat phase, you do not roll to hit. They're automatically considered hit. All we're going to do is roll into damage. You're going to roll the same as in a shooting phase. So these guys are veterans. We're going to need 5s on these dice. And that's including exceptional damage. So that you'll get to choose, if we roll double 6s here, we'll get to choose who we're actually taking out as far as the commanders go. There's no penetration modifiers, obviously, because they're not using the weapons. They're using hand-to-hand. There's also no weapon special rules, except those rules that have to deal with assaulting. We'll get into that here in a second because we actually have a scenario where that's going to come up. There's also no dealing with pins in close combat. We're going to ignore all pins. Now in this situation, there are no pins, so we're okay there. So, what did I say about assault special rules? SMGs, which we have 1 left because he took out my NCO, has a special rule called Tough Fighter. Tough Fighter allows you that when a model with that ability scores a casualty against infantry or artillery, it can immediately make a 2nd damage roll. Never a 3rd, but a 2nd. Again, these videos aren't to cover every single special scenario, but you're going to see Tough Fighter a lot because it comes up with anything that's considered an assault weapon. your SMGs, your pistols, that kind of stuff. And you'll see it quite often. So in this situation, we got 6 guys going up against veterans. I need 5 to do some damage. Actually, you know what? I explained the rule and then I didn't do it wrong. So there's a perfect example. So because we have 1 SMG in there, let's do a different color dice because that's going to matter if this one counts to cause that second casualty. So we roll these again. See, perfect, it did it. So that was actually the only one that hit. Nothing did. So it causes a casualty and immediately gets to make another roll to cause another casualty. And that rolled out of screen possibly, but so it's a 3. So horrible. We've only caused 1 British casualty. So the owning player will get to remove their casualties. Again, done the same way as shooting. Less than exceptional, and then you get to move from there. At this time now, the defenders are going to get to swing back. So the defenders have 1, 2, 3, 4 regular, and 1 with the assault special roll with an SMG. So we're going to roll on these. These guys are veterans, needing 5s. So there we go. Commandos are not as skilled as they should be as commandos. Not a single one caused. So in this case, we normally would remove the attacker, remove casualties, but there are none at that point. So the first round of combat is done. At this point, the loser now is considered destroyed. How do you tell if you're the loser side or not? So the side that caused the most casualties is the winner. Alright, so that's going to play a role here because we only have 1 casualty caused there. Now I want to make a special keynote here because before anyone asks the questions, technically the Finnish lost 3 guys in the reactionary fire. But the way the rule states is it has to be from the close combat. It says casualties caused from the round of close combat are what you add up. So these guys, although the British killed off 3, they were not part of the combat. All they did was whittle the numbers before we got into close combat. So in this situation, there was only 1 casualty caused. It was by the Finnish. They killed 1 commando. So the Finnish are actually considered the winners. So since it's an obvious winner, the rest of the British commandos are considered to be destroyed. Whether they're considered that they surrendered, whether they're considered that they broke and ran, whether they were killed to the last man, they were destroyed. So they are completely removed from the battle. If one side is completely destroyed, and this is a special note they have, it's common sense to me, but if one side is completely destroyed, it is the loser regardless of how many casualties it counted. So if for some reason we had a 3-man team of SMGs here, and they all caused 3 wounds, rolled again because of the tough fighter, and caused 3 more wounds, so they caused 6 wounds, but yet all 3 of these died, although they only lost 3, they're still considered the loser because they have no more models left on the table. Again, common sense type of thing, but they put it in rules, which means somebody tried to try it somewhere. So I just want to make that special note there. Now, at this point, we would skip the part about the fighting the second phase because it was a complete loss. There is no second round of combat. The winner is going to regroup. So the winner would get to move 6 inches any way they want. So they got 3 inches. So maybe not exactly where they wanted to get, but they can start to kind of move. You know, just get out of the way here a little bit. Maybe from direct fire from somebody sitting on this side of the fence down. That's it. And then obviously remember the commandos are completely wiped out, so this dice does not go back in the bag. If they did not have a dice out because for some whatever reason they decided not to do the reactionary fire, or if it was within 6 inches and they couldn't, remember to move the die from the bag. So in that case, that's how you fight a quick infantry round of close combat. Now, let me set these back up here. Hit rewind a little bit. These guys are set up. These guys are set up. If something would happen where each side would lose 1 guy, it's considered a draw, obviously. They immediately fight another round of combat. So they would fight again. You continue to do that until one side is either the winner or one team is completely wiped out. So again, in a situation where this was a 3-man team, First round of combat, they each lose one. Second round of combat, they each lose one. Third round of combat, they each lose one. It's done because they have no guys left. They still have 3. So you continue to play rounds until there is a obvious winner. And to be a winner, you must have less casualties than your opponents. So that is a very simple infantry on infantry scenario. We're going to run one more here. So let me get this set up, and I want to show you what I was talking about with defensive positions. Okay, we're going to run one more scenario here using a couple of things we just talked about that we did in the last scenario. In this situation, we have a group of British commandos here that decide that they're going to assault this defensive position of the Finns here hiding behind the fence line. So we're going to declare the target, just as we discussed. We're going to say, yeah, we're assaulting them. These Finnish have not gotten to fire yet, which we'll grab the die. Okay, they're going to run assault. Finnish group has not assaulted yet. We're going to measure, or got to do anything yet, so we're going to measure here about 7 inches to the closest guy, 6 inches there. Actually, that'll play a role, so we're going to say 7 inches. Make it easier. Okay, 7 inches away. We measured. We know they're in range. The Finnish are going to declare a fire. It's a target reaction. Now, they do have pins on them. They have 2 pins, so they're automatically going to get the pass, but that's going to play a role when it comes to shooting at these guys. Remember, it's 1 modifier for every pin on them. So let's figure out exactly what we have here. We have 2 SMGs. 1 there. My other guy's hiding there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riflemen. He's the loader for the LMG. 1 LMG at 4 dice. So they're going to get to put quite a bit of shots down on them. But again, they're pinned. So they're in the open. They're over 6 inches, so they're not considered close quarters. So it's 3, it's 4, 5 because of the pin. So I need 5s to put some hurt on them here. So let's remove everything. It's not a 5. So not horrible. So 4 shots on them. Oh, and I pulled the dice because they were obviously already misses, but the purple ones, I would have needed 6s on them because they're from the SMG. I forgot to mention that. That's why there was different color ones in there. So 4 riflemen, LMG were able to hit. Needing 5s to wound because these guys are veteran. So not a single one. So they're a little bit nervous of the British commandos coming up on them. But that's okay. So nothing happened from the reactionary fire. All the commandos were able to survive. At this point, then, we move them in, as we said. We know they're within range. So what you would do in a situation like this, because they are defending a position, you would move them to the defensive position. This is also the exact same if they were assaulting a building. If they were assaulting this building over here, there's a door and a window, so 4 guys would have been able to shoot out of them. Once the defensive fire is done, they move to those openings and would just pile up outside the building because they're assaulting into that building. So obviously you can't cram them all in there, so you just pile them up as close as possible. Again, these guys can't really get in contact, so he would just kind of hang out here. So, exactly the same as last time, right? Where does the defensive bonus come into play? Right here. Because these guys are attacking a defensive position, although they're the ones that charged, they both will fight simultaneously. So what that means is it doesn't matter who, if you want one person to roll first and the other person to roll, you play it as all the models on the table. So let's get some stuff lined up here and see how this combat goes. We have an SMG with Tough Fighter, rifle, LMG rifle, 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 rifle. Okay, so there's only one there, or one SMG in that group. In this group, we have 2 SMGs. There, where the other guy was, right there. Alright, so all you're doing is figuring out how many dice these guys get to attack. Now, the loader will get to attack here because it's not considered shooting. So there we go. So that's how the first round's combat's going to play out. They're each going to roll it to simultaneously, you and your opponent, to make sure it happens. So, again, there's no hit rolls. It's just to wound. These guys are 5, so we need 5 on these dice. Alright, so we have 3. Now this was the SMG with Tough Fighter, so it'll immediately get to make another one. Nope, so We're still there. So these guys have caused 3 casualties. You want to remember that because that is going to play a role. These guys then will roll, eating 5s. Okay, so they've caused 4. And Tough Fighter, there we go. And that actually was an exceptional damage, if I remember, if I didn't move it, so no. Okay, so the Finish have caused 5. The Commandos have caused 3. So the Finish will remove 3 guys. 1, 2, 3. The Commandos remove 5 guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright. Represented just like that. Now that's an obvious win for the Finns because they've caused more casualties than the British. So at this time, these guys would be fully destroyed. And these guys can consolidate D6. That was a 3. Now obviously they're still in a good defensive position, so they may just shuffle down a little bit to get them all in there. Alright, so that's how a defensive position comes into play. It lets you attack simultaneously, which obviously you could see it would be a big deal because say if we rolled the exact same for the British, they got to hit first, that would have been 3 less attack dice that the Finnish would have been rolling to attack back. But they get to attack simultaneously, so they're hitting at the same time. So that's infantry on infantry with a couple of the different scenarios played in. Defensive position, tough fighter, pins, reactionary fire, all of that. Remember, we didn't really show you because it gets a little monotonous after a while, but if these guys would be within 6 inches, there would have been no defense or no reactionary fire here. Still get the bonus defensive position, but they wouldn't be able to fire beforehand. So I think that covers infantry on infantry. We are next going to go into covering infantry assaulting vehicles, which is a whole nother monster. And we will set up the table and we will get to that here in a second. Okay, now we're going to get into infantry assaulting vehicles. There's all kinds of scenarios that we have to make sure we follow for this and stats and all that. So I have a quick scenario laid up here. We got some Finnish sitting here behind the fence line. This AEC Mark III decided to advance coming up this way, had already advanced and moved, and is now going to surprisingly get ambushed and assaulted by this Finnish infantry here. So, to start with, some key notes. If the vehicle had ran during its movement phase, if this had done a run and moved its full distance, it cannot be assaulted. It's coming up the road, it's moving too fast, they're not going to be able to assault it in time, it's going to zip by them. That goes for any vehicle, even if the vehicle is considered slow. If it's ran its full distance, it's considered moving too fast. Now there's a caveat to that. If this had run, put it back to run, if this had run up here and all of a sudden had gotten shot at by, say, an anti-tank vehicle or anti-tank rifle or a Panzerfaust or something, and had gotten changed to a down order per the result on firing on a vehicle and damaging it, if it was basically brought to a halt in any way, or if, of course if it was immobilized, even if on a run it was shot at and then immobilized, it then could be assaulted. That's why I'd actually played a game with a guy who, short story here real quick, who when I would fire on stuff and he'd move the vehicle, he'd be like, okay, that's it, and I'd be like, okay, now change the dice to a down order. And in his mind, it was, well, it's already moved. There's a dice there. I know we're good to go. It didn't go down, so cover. You're not going to fire anything else on it. It doesn't matter for cover. But it does in this scenario, because then if you want to assault something, that dice should be on a down order. So we know that vehicle hadn't been moved, but it was brought to a halt. So if that was the case, then it would be to a down. But if it had done its full movement range, you keep it on a run. I hope that makes sense. That was kind of jumbled a little bit there. But in this scenario, it had just advanced, so it is capable of being assaulted. Now, one other thing for infantry assaulting armor. Didn't happen too often. If they could try to bring it down some other way, they would, but it did happen on occasion. It's kind of a crazy move. So there's a thing in the book called Tank Fear. For any infantry unit to assault an armored vehicle, it has to pass a tank fear. What that is that is an automatic -3 morale test. So you would roll for morale for these guys, pass the 10, or roll the 10. It wouldn't pass being veteran with the -3. So in this case, it would fail. But we're going to say it passed for the sake of this demonstration. But that's key. So if they already have pins on them, that all stacks. So -3 modifier, automatic roll, even if they don't have any pins and they're fully motivated, you have to pass that morale check of a -3 to be able to charge. There's some exceptions to that. If the infantry have a special rule called Tank Hunter, they do not have to take that -3. So that's key. Also, if this was an open-topped vehicle, excuse me, they're not as afraid of it, so you do not need to take that -3 tank fear test. So open-topped, or if they have Tank Hunter, you don't have to worry about that. But every other infantry assaulting, it will. And the Tank Hunter special rule is anytime you take certain things, like if you take Molotovs or any type of anti-vehicle grenades or anything like that, most of the time they give you Tank Hunter. It'll be in your army listing if you get that, obviously. So once you declare, just as we do with infantry, you declare the target, you measure the target. I've already have this set up so I know we're right at about a little over 4 inches, 5 inches. So we know we're good to go there. If it was over 6 inches and this vehicle had not reacted, it can take a reaction shot just like infantry can. And it follows all the same rules as a vehicle shooting as far as what can shoot. If you're using a main gun and you have a turret machine gun, what you decide to want to use. Obviously, if you're going against infantry, mow them down with a machine gun. Arc of fire, all that stuff plays into effect. But in this scenario, we're going to negate all that just so we can get right into assaulting to show you the key differences in assaulting vehicles. But normally they would get to react if it's over 6 inches and they have not done anything yet. So before we get into anything here, let's move the guys up. They've assaulted. We know that they're in range. So they are just going to pile around this vehicle. Now, in assaulting infantry, at this time, you would just count how many guys you have, how many hits, and you would roll that many. So this is played off of a little bit differently. If a vehicle was mobilized or has a down order or had not taken an action that has not moved, you're going to need 4s to hit for infantry. If the vehicle had advanced, in this scenario, you're going to need 6s to hit. So what you do is you take however many guys you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yep, full squad, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Now in this scenario, it advanced, so where you're going to need 6s to get a hit on it. So we have 2 6s, not the greatest. Now you see, if we had decided to attack this thing before it had moved, that would be a different story. We would then be looking at that total for hits. But in this case, it advanced. So we're going to take those away. So we only have 2 that actually scored hits. Now what you do is you take an additional d6 and you roll for the damage value. So we're going to roll dice. We got a 5. You take that and you add the number of hits you have, and that has to beat your armor value. In this case, the Mark III is armor of 8. So in this case, we rolled a 5, 6, 7. We had not broken that armor, so we did not beat it. So in that case, no damage is caused to this vehicle. Now, if the vehicle was soft-skinned, at this point, if you had scored enough, you're going to auto-destroy it. You don't even have to roll on a damage chart. You're dropping grenades down on top of it. It's automatically destroyed. That would be if you obviously scored enough hits to break the armor. So then at this point in this scenario, they are going to break off. If the vehicle survives, they make their regroup move. So we're going to roll. They would then move 5 inches back. So we know they were about 5 inches, so they're going to fall back 5 inches. Most of them will get over the fence, some won't. So in this situation, they would just basically fall back to 5 inches. But what we're going to do is, let's say we attack this vehicle so we could show you. Let's say we attacked this vehicle before it had gotten a chance to move. So we'll get rid of this. And then now we know we have 9 guys. So there's 4, 6, 8, 9. Now, because the vehicle had not gotten a chance to move yet and they assaulted, and say they're under the 6 inches, so it would not get the defensive reaction fire, we're going to roll. Now we need 4s. So anything that's not a 4, so there we go. 5 hits. You would then roll your 1d6. Yeah, there's the 6 we needed last time. So 6, we are at 11. So armor of 8, you are going to break that armor. So then you would roll on a damaged vehicle chart just like normal. And I rolled a 1. So that'd be crew stunned. Now, say we rolled a 5. Unless infantry has tank hunter or any anti-tank, I just put it that way, if they don't have any anti-tank weapons, it is always considered a superficial hit. Because basically they're just going up with grenades trying to find weak spots, hoping to bust it open. They don't have any specialized equipment for that. So if they rolled a 5, but they don't have any special tank hunter, tank assault weapons, that would become a 3. Right? No, I'm sorry, become a 2, -3. So that's key depending on what you want to assault. Now in this case, it actually worked. They were able to immobilize the vehicle. The vehicle survived still because it's not blown up. So these guys would still then at that point take their regroup of 3 inches and fall back. So now they've basically just immobilized that vehicle. So that's key. Now because it had taken damage, you follow the normal thing. You put the down order by it, and you follow the normal damaged vehicle. But that's how you infantry assaults vehicles. Now say if these guys were my Coco Rapuccio, they have tank hunters, so they would not have to do the -3. That 5, pretend we rolled a 5 on a damage chart, that'd be a 5. They don't have to take the -3 for superficial. But the key points to remember is if the vehicle has not moved or has been immobilized or halted, you need 4s. If it had just advanced, you need 6s. However many of those you get, you add 1 more d6 to it to come up with the damage value to see what you do to that vehicle. If they do not have any tank assault weapons, it is a superficial on the damage chart. Other than that, you roll just normally as you would on the damage chart and see what you do to the vehicle. At the end, you would regroup your 6 inches. So again, that's it. As you can see, if you're just hitting, and this is only an armor value 8, if you're going up against with regular infantry going up against armor, it's very rare that you're going to do something, but it happens. You just have to, just like everything else in the game, as the commander, decide if it is worth the risk or not. So that is how you do that. We're going to set up for the next scenario here, and we're going to cover the exact opposite. We're going to cover tanks, assaulting, infantry, and artillery next. Okay, now we're going to cover the exact opposite. We're going to cover vehicles attacking or assaulting infantry, and then we're going to do a scenario of it assaulting artillery. So in this scenario here, we have an AEC Mark III, and of course our finished infantry here. Now, we pull a die. It happens to be a British die. He decides, you know what, I don't think gunning them down is going to work. I'm going to try to assault them. So he decides that he's going to assault. So he declares his target like normal. You measure like normal. Now in this case we're at 13 inches. Now I have that set up that way for a reason. For a vehicle to assault, only tanks, assault guns, and armored vehicles, anything with wheels or tracks or half tracks, have to have a damage rating of 8 or above to assault. Vehicles of 7 and above cannot. It's too risky for them. They won't do it. So if this was a half track with an armor value of 7, it cannot assault. It can if it's armor value 8 or higher. The other thing is it must move at full speed, so you have to give it a run order. And it obviously cannot shoot because it's running, and it must move at least half of its movement distance to be able to assault. So in this case, 12 inches, we're good to go. It's over 12 inches, so we can do that. But if it was real close, it basically just can't get up enough speed to assault, and the guys just move out of the way anyway. So in a situation like this, he decides he's going to assault. The target would react as normal. Now normally, I have 2 Panzerfausts in each finished group, but let's say they've already expended them trying to hit this thing and it's just not going down. So there's nothing in this infantry group that is able to damage excuse me, that marked car. So if there was, it would then do its reaction shots, just like as we went over with infantry against infantry, where the model is sitting. Anything that can harm that vehicle is going to go ahead and put shots on it and go from there. If it survives, it moves forward until it comes in contact with the target unit. Okay, and then we're going to work out the actual assault. So we're going to drive it up, and it's going to come in contact with it here. At that point, now, obviously the vehicle's not going to drive up and try to run people over, smack them with the turret. He's just going to try to charge through them and catch them off guard. So what happens at this point is the infantry, the enemy or opponent, the defender, whatever you want to call them, must immediately take a morale test. If it fails, this unit breaks and runs. It's destroyed completely. So we're going to roll and see what we get. Rolled a 5, so it passes. If we had rolled again, say boxcars, 6s, it's going to destroy this unit. They're just going to break and run. They got terrified, they're fleeing, they're gone. But in case we got 5, they're sticking around. So what happens? Do they just hit the guys and they stop? No. So all they do then is the unit sidesteps. They would sidestep, and the unit and the vehicle would continue its movement on, whatever that movement would be. Where that plays a role is, say if we zoom in a little bit, and we had another small squad kind of hanging behind these guys here, say back here, and it hits this unit, and these guys pass on that 5, they would sidestep, it would continue its movement. It can very well come in contact with another unit. It can come in contact with multiple if your guys have them stacked up down, or your opponent has them stacked up down the road. These guys would then take that roll. They pass with another 5. If the vehicle had any movement left, it would continue on. If it stops anywhere on, say, let's go back here, let's rewind. And these guys are sitting here, it hits it, they pass the morale, but it's at its full movement range, and its movement's going to end right here. So basically what happens is these guys would sidestep away. The vehicle ends right here. These guys then must move to be with 1 inch away. So that unit would then just have to back up 1 inches to be 1 inch away. Now it can obviously pull your unit out of coherency. You can try to get them around, however you want to do it, but they basically have to then move out of the way and end within 1 inch. Or, farther than 1 inch away. So that's it. Simple as that. So, really, you're not getting into close combat with a vehicle assaulting infantry. What you're doing is you're driving headlong at them, hoping that they panic and run. So, it's always good. You can put some pins on a unit and just drive, I don't know, charge a half-track into them, or even a Jeep or something. Well, it can't be those, so I'm sorry, because that's the Armor 8. But, say, a Marcar, your armored car, drive it into them and see if you've scared them enough that that's going to break them. Again, risky in my opinion, because if you fail, you've put yourself into a position where now these guys could then countercharge you, and you're under 6 inches. So, you have to determine how you want to play that out. But that is how they would charge infantry. Now we're going to slide these guys out of the way. And say we had a medium artillery piece here. And this decides that, you know what, I've been hitting it the whole time. I just can't seem to kill it. I'm going to assault it. It works out exactly the same way. Declare target, measure range. Target takes a reactionary shot if it can, if it's over 6 inches, which it should be because this has to be at least half of its charge range. It then charges in. Here's the bad part is if it makes contact in that charge, the artillery piece is automatically destroyed. It's just gone. It's run over because obviously they're not going to try to pull that artillery piece out of the way in time. These infantry guys, so the crew are just going to scatter. What you can do as a defender with that is if you had another artillery piece sitting over here that the crew was killed off on somehow and it was just an empty piece, You can follow the regular rules for remanning and recrewing another artillery piece or gun piece within 6 inches. Or I'm sorry, within 12 inches. We didn't cover that last time because, again, it's very rare. Most people don't take multiple artillery pieces that works. It does in bigger games. But that's covered on page 96 if you want to get into that. But the key note here is if a vehicle assaults any type of artillery unit, heavy gun, medium gun, that kind of stuff, it's basically automatically destroyed. That works for machine guns, my understanding. The rule doesn't specify, but unless I missed it, please comment if I have. But anything that they can't tow out or move out of the way or has to be towed is going to be automatically destroyed. If you had something nearby, the crew could run and cover that gun. If not, the crew just flees the battlefield and it's destroyed. So it's very simple, very easy for vehicles assaulting in infantry and artillery. Again, risky move. Do it at your own risk. Next, we're going to cover something even riskier, and we're going to go into vehicles assaulting vehicles, smashing into other vehicles. Again, there are accounts of it. It did happen under extreme circumstances. The rules do cover how to do it. In my years of playing, I have yet to see someone actually do it on the battlefield. Frankly, it'd be cool to see, but most people just don't want to risk it. So we're going to get this set up here, and we're going to cover some vehicle-on-vehicle demo derby. Okay, the last thing we're going to cover here, like we said, is armor on armor. So here we have a situation where we have a Churchill 4 and the T-34-85 were pounding away at each other. Nothing was happening. So the Churchill had just fired, didn't do anything to the T-34. T-34 has decided, you know what, I'm just going to ram him because I'm sick of dealing with him. So the Churchill had already moved. The T-34 pulls a dice. He decides he's going to charge. Again, you work it out the same as normal. Declare your target. Measure your distances. Again, it has to be over that 12-inch. Obviously, it's closer here, but that's because I'm trying to zoom in. The target would then get a chance to do his reactionary fire. In this case, he already has, so he cannot. And at that point, we're going to say we're going to charge him. Now, to motivate a tank crew to decide to charge another tank, you have to pass a motivation test on that -3 tank fear modifier. Now, they call it tank fear when it's infantry assaulting tanks. In this case, they just call it a -3 modifier, but in my opinion, it's still a fear of, do I really want to try to ram myself into another tank? So you would take the test at a -3. He's going to pass it on a veteran status. So he's good to go. He decides he's going to ram. So what you do is you move into contact with the Churchill. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and say it's right there. Okay, now, how do we figure this out for damage purposes? What happens is both vehicles roll a d6 and add their armor value to it, their damage value to it. So he's going to roll, he's a damage value of 9, so that's pretty good, 15. Churchill's going to roll, he's a damage value of 10, and he rolls a 5. Outstanding. Okay, so they have tied. What that means is they have both technically lost the combat. So what happens then is they now roll on the damage chart. Now this is where it gets tricky, so excuse me if I stutter a little bit here. So whoever would be the loser, let's start with an easy one. Say if the Churchill would win and this would be the loser, then you're only rolling for this one. But since both did, and this is actually a perfect example because I can wrap both up into one situation here, they're going to roll a d6. Now, the way that works is if the loser of the armor damage value is greater than its opponent's, you roll on a superficial. If it's not, you don't. So in this situation, we're going to roll for the Churchill first. So we're going to roll a d6 on a damage chart. He rolls a 4. His armor value of 10 is greater than the T-34's of 9. So this becomes superficial. So he would just become stunned. In this case, we're going to roll on it. It becomes a 1 also. Perfect. Stunned. Say he rolled a 3. Vehicle on fire. He will not get the superficial because this is a greater armor value. He took the risk to ram an armor that's higher than him. So in this case, both of them would end up getting rammed and stopped here. Any surviving vehicles, if you would have it, come to an immediate halt. You turn into the down order like normal. And then for each surviving vehicle, whether making the assault or being assaulted, suffers one further pin in addition to any already taken either from the reaction fire or from the damage result. So after you apply the pins for being stunned and for vehicle on fire and all that, they would then each take an additional pin because it's going to take them a little bit to recover from what just happened. So I know that was kind of a lot of information, but basically to recap, for a vehicle to assault a vehicle, it's a -3 modifier. Once you ram it, you each roll a d6 and add your armor value. The loser is whoever loses the dice roll off, so whoever has the lowest number. You then roll on the damaged vehicle chart. If the vehicle that lost has a higher armor value, that damage is superficial. If the vehicle that lost has a lower damage value, then that damage is just straight off of the chart. Once all results are figured out and pins are applied, both vehicles will get an additional pin, if they've survived, to them to figure out what's going on. So again, you can see where it can get really crazy. It's a big risk. It comes down to a dice roll. You know, you don't want an armored vehicle of an 8 trying to hit something with a 10 because they're already 2 up on you on that dice roll. But again, there are situations where it can happen. In this situation, you know, they both, technically, when we had figured it out, they both rolled a 1. So they both became stunned out of it. If you're willing to risk your vehicle for that, you just put a whole bunch of pins on a Churchill. And he can't do anything. They've both now become down for the rest of the turn. So now would be the time where if you had that finished group to assault a vehicle, they could do it because now it's immobile. You need force to hit it. So it can be done. It can work out in your favor. But again, it's a dicey move, and I've never seen it done. It'd be awesome to see someone or talk to someone. If you've ever had that done in a game you've played in bolt action, comment it. Because I've never actually seen it played out. It'd be pretty cool to see. But so that covers everything. We've covered infantry on infantry. We've covered infantry on vehicles. We didn't cover infantry on artillery, but it works out the same as it would be considered infantry. We've done vehicle on infantry. We've done vehicle on vehicle. So I think we've covered everything. We'll wrap up here, and then that should be it. Again, and I'm sure I'll cover this in the recap, but if I've messed anything up, please comment. If you have any questions, please comment. This was kind of quick and easy, and well, I shouldn't say easy. I've kind of been under the weather, so I'm trying to get this part recorded here. So hopefully I did okay and didn't stumble too much. And I hope you guys learned something. All right, that should be it. We'll wrap it up here. All right, everyone. I think I've covered everything I want to cover with assaulting. Again, I didn't go into every single little nuts and bolts details. Sounds repetitive, but I just want to put that out there. But I think that gives a good basis of how assaulting works. Again, add in some of the special rules, the national special rules for like the British Commandos are brutal once they get into assault. If you got a full SMG squad with everyone having tough fighter, that can get pretty potent. So there's all kinds of things you can play with in there with that. So I think that's it. I'm going to wrap up this vehicle here. I'm going to wrap up the entire series on this video here just by saying that, again, we've gone through now 4 videos. First one just introducing what bolt action is, and then dealing with movement, and then dealing with shooting, and then dealing with assaulting. Again, the cool thing about this game system is it's not like other game systems where those are stages in the turn you take. Those are options you can take once you activate that unit. So it all plays in and intermingles on the battlefield. You may have some heavy firing going on in the center while your right flank is moving up, while your left flank is already assaulting to try to push them back and turn in that flank. So a lot of cool, fun things you can do. Again, I hope you liked the videos. I hope you learned something from them. If I messed anything up, because I guarantee I did, comment down in the comment section with what it is. Again, be nice. I've been playing this for, like I said, a couple years now. I forget exactly when version 3 came out, but at least 2 years-ish I've been playing, somewhere in there. This has become our game of choice kind of up here with our club. We're pushing pushing the envelope and trying to get more people involved in it. We have some big things coming up on our page, so please feel free to check us out, Coal Legion Gaming on Facebook. Hint, hint, there's going to be a decent-sized event in September being hosted by us in the area. So look for that. That's going to be posted here shortly. I'm going to follow the series up with 2 other videos. The next one is going to be a unboxing and kind of show of my son's, the Brits, the unpainted commandos that I've been using. This is going to be an old video, so bear with me. It's probably the first one I ever recorded, and I'll probably put a little preface in that too when I start it. But we bought those British Commandos over a year ago, and we did an unboxing video. I assembled them all, and then we showed everything after they were assembled and kind of talked a little bit about them. I'm going to post that up next, so you get the mechanics of how the game plays. You can see exactly what you can get with some of the Special Army deals. I'm going to follow up. The 6th video is going to actually be a bat rep. It's going to be my beautiful, lovely finish, most likely against Eric's Soviets. I'd like to do a good, probably not use the special rules, but a good Winter War scenario, get some finish on Soviets, good hatred on the table going. That's probably going to be posted as the last video, and then from there we're going to continue with the bat reps. And some other stuff as people get their armies painted and all. It's my finish are pretty much 99% done. I have a couple support options for them I got to get done. I promised my son that I'd get the commandos painted, so you'll probably start seeing them soon. We'll see. I got a whole bunch of stuff to get ready for that surprise event in September. We'll talk more about. But yeah, so back to done rambling, as I tend to do. So I hope again you've seen everything you like. If you have specific questions on any of the videos, post down in the comment section. Please remember to subscribe to like our YouTube page. Check us out on Facebook, coallegiongaming.com. We are on, I'm sorry, not .com, but on Facebook, whatever, at Coal Legion Gaming. We're on there. We're trying to grow the area. And yeah, I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. I hope I didn't mess things up too badly. And you guys could put up with my rambling and stuttering. So that is all I have for this video. Again, hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to comment, subscribe, and happy gaming.